Yo, what's going on, dudes? HK Titan here with a brand new video for you guys, and in today's video I have something a little bit different planned for you guys, because in today's video I'm going to be remaking one of the most iconic maps from the game Bloons Tower Defense 4. Now this is probably one of the maps that you guys have seen a lot in the BTD6 map editor, because this is probably one of the most made map designs in all I mean, just look at all of these ocean roads. So one thing I want to do is a lot of the ocean roads, they're just like really barren and they don't have a lot of detail. Like this one's actually pretty good, but I just feel like there's just a little bit too much clutter. So what I want to do in today's video is I want to go through and I want to make an ocean road fit for Bloons Tower Defense 6. And of course, I want to make my ocean road look the best out of all of these ocean roads in the BT6 map browser. So obviously the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to choose the desert background. Now the only thing I'm like debating right now is which background I want to use. Like, do I want to use like this really plain sand background, or do I want to use like the actual background that has like these little wavy effects? I'm not exactly sure right now, but the first thing we have to do is we have to get the pathways set up first. So let me get the pathway set up real quick. All right, and if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be the rough outline of Ocean Road. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and change the path width. I want to change the path width over to 1. That way we can go ahead and like, it doesn't look so fat. Like, I like the bigger pathways with some of the other pathways, but with this like road pathway, it just looks a little bit weird. Now we need to go ahead and like straighten out all of these edges. All right, so now we have like a majority of the corners straightened out. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to like make the corners like as squared off as we can get them. So in order to get these like corners as squared off as we can get them, the only thing we have to do is we just have to like work with these nodes a little bit. Like, they don't have to be perfect, but I would like them to look decent, right? All right, and I think that looks pretty good for the Oceans Road. Now, the next thing we have to do is we have to add the water feature down here in the bottom of the map. Now, the water feature that we're going to be doing, obviously, we're going to be going for like an Oasis type of vibe. So let's go ahead and grab this really bright this really bright water feature. And now we also have to like kind of like make it similar to what they do in Oceans Road. Now, what they do in Oceans Road that I think looks really cool is they have like these little wavy patterns along the beach. And as long as we can get these like small wavy patterns, that'll really add a lot of detail to our beach, right? And I always say this a lot when you guys are creating maps. Like, it's always really important to like add a little bit of texture to like beaches or water effects, because if you don't add any texture, then it's just gonna look a little bit bland, and you don't want your like lakes or your water features to look bland, right? Because if they look bland, then it's just not gonna look good, right? And there we go, we have a little bit of a background that has a little bit of a texture. Now the next thing we want to do, what do we want to do to like add a little bit of pizzazz to this map? Because obviously, like, we don't just want to like stick a couple of trees down here, add a little bit of rocks up here, and then call it good. We want to bring this map into a BTD6. So what's a couple of things that we can do to add a lot of detail? So one thing that I have in mind, what if we like add a little bit of a windmill here, and we kind of like turn this into a old Western theme? I mean, this map already has the old Western vibes. So if we just use a couple of the Western props, I think we can add that detail that we're really looking for. On top of that, because this is like a desert theme, let's also add quite a few more trees too, because the BT5 map is really barren and it's really plain. There's not a lot of detail on this map. So because we have the option to add more detail, let's just go ahead and take advantage of the fact that we have more props to work with. All right, so the first thing I want to do, I want to go ahead and add a couple of rock features. Like, because we have this desert vibe, I'm not going to be sticking with the like gray rocks, because the gray rocks, they just look so boring, and it would look way better if we use the red rocks, because that would also fit the theme of this map a little bit better. Now, I did have the idea of turning this map into like a resort style of map by adding like a couple of like houses and a couple of houses in like these little small nooks here. But I feel like that would just be a little bit too far away from the original Oceans Roads map. So I think by like adding these rocks, it'll like stick with the original theme of the map, but it'll also add a lot more detail to the map as well. All right, so I think this is going to be like the basic setup for the rocks. Like, obviously I'm going to have to come through and add a little bit more detail to these rocks, because right now they're just like kind of out there. And we want to add a little bit more detail in between the rocks, and that'll be like fixed with like shading and a couple of like plants that we can place down. All right, so now that we have all of the rocks placed down, I want to like turn this little area here into almost like a rest stop, because I think it would be really cool if we had like our own little private rest stop, because I feel like that's something that if Ocean's Road was brought to BTD6, that's definitely something that Ninja Kiwi would add. So in order to add like a little bit of a rest stop, let's just go ahead, we'll add ourselves a building. Now with this building, we'll go ahead and like turn it like this. And then I also want to like kind of make it so like there's like a little pathway that goes from or goes off of the road and like kind of into like a parking lot. But if I do that, then what or how am I gonna make this look good? Like I kind of wanted to avoid like having like a straight building, but I think the straight building's like the only thing that we're going to be able to do. And then if we copy this building and then we make it a little bit smaller, we can have like a little side shack on this building as well, and that'll add a little bit more detail too. There we go. I just need to drop it down just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now that we have our building set up, let's go ahead. Where do I want to set up a windmill? So first I need to like choose a size for the windmill. And I think this size actually looks pretty good. But where would be a good spot for our windmill? I almost want to like place it back over here, over on this side of the road. I think that would look pretty cool. And then, and the main reason why I want to place the windmill over on this side of the road is because I want to have the water tower right next to the building. There we go. So we have at the windmill, we have like a little rest stop or like a little shop here. And then another thing that I want to do that I thought would look really, really cool is what if we like added these fences in front of the shop, and then we had like a couple of like donkeys like hooked up to the fence, like an old Western like I don't know what they're called, but oh yeah, they're called a hitching post, like an old-timey hitching post where like people would like hitch up their horses. Because we have a donkey, we go ahead and like place a donkey here, and I think that would look really, really cool, right? Yeah, like we just have like a little donkey here. Now I'm gonna move this pile over here. Where do I want to put it? I planned on like putting a sign in this dirt mound. And the main reason why I have this dirt mound is obviously just to add like a little bit of contrast to the map. And I think it would look really, really cool, right? Now, the next thing is, what am I going to like add over here to like almost make it seem like a parking lot? Actually, you know what? I know exactly what would work. Where is it? The prop that I want to use this. So it'll almost look like gravel, right? And then we'll add a couple of the red rocks in the mix as well. Actually, I need to like space these out a little bit better because I don't want them overlapping, but I want them to take up a good portion of this area, right? And then also we need to drop this stamp layer down below the pathway as well. There we go. Now we can go ahead and place all of these stamps underneath the pathway and it'll still look good. All right, so now the next thing I want to do, oh man, like I want to add like some snow. Oh dude, if I did that, it would look so cool. Because like on the Ocean Roads map, they have like a little wave effect along the ocean, and I think that's something that we can actually replicate if we do it correctly. But actually, you know what? I don't think I can place areas above props. Let me check really quick. No, we can't place areas above props, so we'd have to use something else. What if we position the white snow area underneath the water effect? Oh, there we go. This still looks a little bit weird. I need to move this one up a little bit more, or towards the water a little bit more. But that's gonna give us a little bit of a wave feature that they have on the actual Ocean's Road map. Like, there's still something else that I need to add along the shoreline, but that'll come when we start adding some shading. All right, so now the next thing I want to do, I want to grab a couple, or add a couple more of these features. Let's add ourselves this little like water thing over here. Like, I probably should like position the hitching post a little bit more over here, but because Ocean's Road is like a really cramped map, we don't have a lot of space to work with, right? So we just have to like kind of like make this as detailed as we can. And as we're making it as detailed as we can, we also need to make sure that we're like being mindful of like the space between props, as well as we don't want to end up like changing the actual pathway itself. I kind of wish that they gave us a little bit more like Wild West props to work with, because because I have like so many ideas. Like instead of like this like yellow building, I would have much rather have like a Wild West building instead, right? Because that would look way better on this map. Now, one thing I'm working on right now is I want to add a little bit more detail to this background, because I like it, but I'm trying to think of like something else that we could like turn this into a little bit of a better driveway. Now, one thing I want to add is I want to add fences along the road. So let's go ahead and add a couple of fences, and maybe that'll add a little bit of something extra that I feel like we're missing. All right, so far so good. I added like a couple of fences here because I felt like it was like lacking something. And I also think I'm gonna go ahead and take away these red rocks. Like the red rocks just stand out a little bit too much. So I think it would look better if we didn't have those red rocks. Yeah, it actually looks way better without those rocks. I almost wonder that if like adding like dirt mounds instead, if like dirt mounds like piled up in like certain spots would actually add a little bit more detail. Now I'm starting to get to the point where I don't know what to add to like add a bunch of detail to this. Like I already added like something in front of the doorway. That way there was a little bit more of an effect. And I actually really like the way that looks. There we go. Now I don't think I want to add anything else, because when I start like going overboard with props, then it like starts becoming like a big deal, and I don't want to go too crazy with props, right? Because once you start going crazy with the props, then you start getting into trouble, because then it just looks a little bit out of place. And if I stop right now, I think it'll look good. I say that, but I just remembered I still have this hay bale that I want to add. But you know what? I don't feel like we really need the hay bale. So we'll save that prop for a different time. And we'll also get rid of this, and we'll move these barrels over here next to the building. So I think that's going to do it for our little makeshift rest stop. Like I put up like a bunch of like junk piles along the side of the building, because usually when you come across like a rest stop in like the middle of the desert in like these really like long roads, you'll always have like a rest stop that has like a bunch of junk on the side. And I thought this like really imitated that. On top of that, I also want to grab myself a light post too. There we go. And we'll just have a singular lamppost here. Like sometimes they have multiple lampposts, but I think one is more than enough. All right, now let's start adding a little bit of detail to our little like oasis down here in the bottom left. So for our oasis, I think it's going to be pretty obvious, but we'll go with a couple of palm trees. And then with these palm trees, we'll like we'll place them around here like this. And then I'll probably end up adding like a couple of different bushes as well. Then we also need to remember to position or like make our trees like some bigger, some smaller, because we don't want them all to be the same size, because if they're all the same size, then it's gonna look a little bit weird. So we want like one to be like massive, and we'll have like a couple of smaller ones. And then we also need to like make sure that we don't make it too cluttered, because I also want to add a couple of these trees in here as well, because for an oasis, I want to have more trees than they have on the official Oceans Roads map, right? Because I feel like we could do a little bit better for like a little oasis on the side of the road, right? All right, so I think this is going to do for the base layer of our oasis. Like I'll go through and I'll add like a couple of shrubs. Like on the Oceans Road map, they actually have like a couple of oasis trees up here as well. But I feel like if we have actually, you know what? Let's just go and add a couple of palm trees up here as well. That way we kind of stick with the Oceans Road theme a little bit, right? But we want it to be a little bit more out there. So it's like going from this like wide open desert, and then we have like a little rest stop here, and then eventually when it gets over here, we start getting like this lush green feeling, because we're right next to water. But now that we have all of this like lush greenery down here in the bottom left, we also want to add a little bit more detail up here. So one thing I know works for adding detail on these desert maps is by using these trees. Like these trees always look really, really good for like a desert tree. And what this will do is this will add a little bit of a greenery up here on the map where we really don't have a lot of detail, right? We'll add like a couple of trees here. We'll also grab ourselves a couple of cactuses. Now with the cactuses, we'll only add a couple of them, but we definitely want to add some because I mean we're in kind of the middle of the desert, so we want to make sure that we add a couple of cacti as well. All right, so now begins the fun part, right? So I want to add a couple of cactuses over here. And just to add a little bit more detail on our map, right? Let's also add like another cactus over here. And then we'll just have like a couple of different spots where we have like a little bit of a different like greenery and different plants as well. And if you guys are curious about what all this is for, it's just so I don't have to like go through the entire like props page in order to find the props that I'm looking for. So just ignore those for now because they're going to be going away here in just a second. All right, so adding all of these like small trees as well as the cactuses around the map, that instantly added a lot of detail to our map, and I'm actually really liking the way that it's turning out so far. Now, if you guys are curious, I'm using like these big trees here as like small desert bushes because we really don't have a desert bush that looks good in the desert like atmosphere. So by making these trees really small, it actually makes really good small desert bushes. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to start adding some bushes over here in these like rocky parts because these rocky parts, they just look a little bit barren, but if we add like these or this greenery, it'll actually add a lot of detail next to these rocks. And because we can't use like normal shrubs, this is like the only thing that we can do to add a little bit more detail around these rocks, right? And there we go. So we add like a bunch of these like desert shrubs around these rocks, and it's always so amazing how just like adding a little bit of this like shrub work around the rocks really help the rocks blend more into the map, right? Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to go a little bit more in detail with these rocks. And what I mean by going in detail is I want to start like grabbing like smaller rocks, and I want like the big rocks to like start degrading into small like pebble rocks, and that'll really like make these like rock features blend into the background a little bit better. Because if we just left them the way that they were, then they would just look a little bit weird and out of place. But if we add all of these like smaller rocks, and the rocks will get smaller and smaller, it'll really help add a lot of detail and atmosphere to our map. Now, we're not doing anything crazy. We're just like kind of like transitioning these big rocks into small rocks, and by doing these transitions, it really like makes it feel like you're looking at a mountain opposed to just like having like these big rocks. Because if we just have these big rocks, especially on a map where we don't have a lot of props to work with, then it's just gonna look a little bit weird, right? All right, so I think that looks pretty good, guys. Now the next thing I want to do, let me go ahead and add a little bit more of this like desert brush around the trees up here, because we're not going to be able to add shrubs around them. The only thing we're going to be able to do is we're only going to be able to add these, I don't even know what to call them, like these desert shrubs. And this will add a little bit more detail around our trees and make them blend into our map a little bit better. Because if we just like left the trees the way they were, then they would look a little bit weird, because you always want to have a little bit of green or a little bit of something underneath your tree. And of course that includes shade. But if we just have like a tree just out in the middle of nowhere, it's just gonna look a little bit weird unless we have like something to like break up the color or to add like another color in the mix, right? All right, so we added a little bit more greenery around here. Now, one thing I'm debating on doing is I'm debating on adding a little bit of grass. Like, I don't think a little bit of grass down here would hurt, but at the same time, like, I kind of like the sandy atmosphere, so I don't want to take it too far, right? And another thing I'm debating on doing, I want to take a couple of these rocks, and I also want to add like a couple of rocks over here as well. That would have a little bit of color in the middle of the map too, right? No, I don't want to go too crazy with the rocks, but just by adding a couple of rocks over here and here, that really adds a lot of detail, right? And I really like the way this map is turning out. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to take a look at a couple of like background or a couple of stamps, because I don't know what I want to add, or I don't know what else would look good on this map. Like these black spots might look good if I like used a couple of them, right? Like not too many, just like a little something extra to add like a little bit more contrast. So add like one here, and then I think that's good. I don't really like the crack too much, because I don't really know where it would like like serve a good purpose, because like it's a little bit too, actually, you know what, I think it would look really good over here, but in order for it to look good, I would have to extend a couple of these rocks over next to the crack. There we go. So I think like just having like one crack there, I think that's fine. Like I was saying, we're not gonna go too crazy. Oh, another thing that we could add some like grass. Yeah, dude. We need to add another stamp layer though. And then with stamp layer 2, we need to drop it below the areas. And then let's add a little bit of this grass effect, or these grass stamps, because it'll give us like the green vibe, but we don't want to go crazy. Or I was thinking about adding grass, but like grass would just be a little bit too much, right? But if we just have like a couple of these like stamp effects, that'll look way better. Yeah, that definitely looks good. All right, now the next thing we want to do, we can't add that. Is there anything else that would look good in the desert? Like we could add this. You know what, I don't think that, or I think that's just a little bit too dark. What about a couple of these rocks? Instead of having this stamp, this stamp, let's add a couple of these rocks, and we'll position them around the map, but just to add a little bit of extra contrast in spots where I think we need a little bit more, mainly in like these wide open areas. But guys, I think that's gonna do it for all of the props. Like, I wish I could do more with this rest stop, but if I start like going crazy with the props, then we're gonna get in a little bit of trouble. Actually, you know what? Can I add like a couple of these? No, because then it would take away from the effect that the all other rocks have. And actually, you know what? I want to delete that rock. I also want to delete this one. And I want to delete this one. Because if we have too many, then it loses its effect. And I think we're just at the cusp of like having like a really good rock to sand ratio. Now the last thing we have to do is add a little bit of shade. So this is, like I said in the last video, this is always like one of my favorite parts of like creating maps, is adding the shade around props, because when you start adding shade around the props, it really brings your map to life, and it always makes your map look so much better. And then if you guys remember, when I was making this like ocean feel, there's one more thing that I want to do, and I want to add a 4th stamp layer. And then with this 4th stamp layer, I want to drop it below the snow, and I want to add like a dark part to the wave. And if we add this dark part to the wave, I feel like the wave will look a little bit better. And you know what? I actually like that. Like, it's not perfect, but I do feel like it adds a little bit something extra to this like wavy bit. On top of that, let's add ourselves a little bit of something extra down over here in the water. But we need to like work with these stamps, and these stamps are always a pain in the butt to work with. If we add like a little something extra along the shoreline, I feel like it would really make our map pop, right? And there we go, guys. Like, I'm looking around the map and I'm not really seeing too much more that we can do. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and add like some of this gray over here too. Oh yeah, dude. That looks so good. Okay, so I know what I was missing here. Like, it almost looks like there's like a cement parking lot. Yeah, dude, I really like the way that looks. On top of that, we have shade underneath all of our props. I want to add a little bit more shade up here. Let me see. So where is stamp layer? Wait, I think it's stamp layer 4. Stamp layer 4, we need to add a little bit more shade up here. And then let's go ahead and take a look around our map to make sure that we didn't miss anything. And no, for the most part, I added like another rock up here because I wanted to break up that straight line a little bit more. But for the most part, I think that's going to do it for our remastered version of Ocean's Road. Now, of course, we're going to go ahead and add a background effect. So for the background effect, I think I'm going to go with this like a dust cloud, but I need to see what it looks like. Okay, yeah. I really like the dust cloud. I feel like the dust cloud really fits with the theme of this map. Then, of course, we have to choose ourselves some background music. And I think we'll just go with the main fiesta, because the main fiesta sounds pretty good, and I think it fits the theme of the map as well. So now the last thing we have to do is, of course, play our map. So let's go ahead and check our map out, make sure we didn't mess anything up, because we do have quite a few more props now, right? So let's go ahead. We'll place down our Corvus. We'll place down our dart monkey right here, and then we need to save up to buy a sniper. That way we can check out all of like the sight lines, right? So we have the trees blocking the sight lines. Unfortunately, the cactuses can't block sight lines, but we don't have anything weird that's blocking sight lines. Actually, we do have that crate that's blocking the sight lines. Actually, it's not the crate. It's the fence post next to the door that's blocking the crate. So that's not a big deal. I mean, you're not really gonna worry too much about like placing something here. Well, actually, and even if you did want to place something here, you have more than enough room to place it, right? But yeah, I think this is a pretty solid remastered version of Ocean's Road. But I don't know, dudes. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What you guys would rate this map on a scale of 1 to 10 bananas, and if I did a decent job at remastering this map. But while we're playing this map, I just want to say thank you guys again so much for the support on the series. I know I say it all the time in all of my map creation videos, but I really appreciate you guys like liking and watching and commenting on the videos, because it really shows me that you guys enjoy watching that. That being said, of course, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys don't forget to hit that like button. Also, if you guys are new around here, don't forget to subscribe as well, because I do upload a daily BTD6 content. Also, if you guys have any ideas for maps that you guys would like to see me create, again, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And if it sounds like something that I can do, I'll definitely do it. Or if you guys have a map that you guys created that you really don't like and you want to see a improved version of that map, please feel free to drop the code to your map in the comments below, and I'll go ahead and take a look at the map and see if I can remaster it. But because this map is relatively easy, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward all the way up until round 40, and I'll see you guys here in just a second. Alright dudes, here we are at the end of round 39, and so far our towers, like I was saying, this is Ocean's Road, so it's not too hard of a map. And the last thing we have to deal with is the Moab balloon, and there we go, dudes. We have officially beaten our map. Then of course the last thing we have to do is name our map. So for the name of the map, I just called it BTD4 Ocean Road Remastered. And then if you guys would like to play this map for yourself, here is the code. But anyways, dudes, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you dudes in the next one.